Story time about when a client came to get her nails done by me just because she thought I was messing with her boyfriend. So, right off the jump, when this girl was booking her appointment, it was already like iffy. Like, she was going back and forth. Like, booking an appointment with me is simple. Inbox me about time, send your deposit. If any of those times, go with your schedule, and that's it. Your appointment is booked. But she kept going back and forth, asking me 1,000,001 questions. And right when I was going to be like, you know what, that spot's gone. Even though it wasn't gone, she ended up sending her deposit and booked her appointment. So anyways, the day of her appointment comes. She's like 20 minutes late, and I usually give a 15-minute grace period, but she was my last person, so I was like, whatever, I'll still take you. So at her appointment, she's like asking me all these personal questions that you don't ask anybody. Like, she even asked me if I was like still messing with my baby. So anyways, as she was sitting in the chair getting her nails done, we were going back and forth conversating. I have a habit of asking first-time clients, how did they find me? How did they find out about me? She said that she was looking at so-and-so's status, which hint is her boyfriend, but she didn't say that at the time. But anyway, she was looking at his status, and she seen that I liked one of his statuses. She clicked on my page, and boom, she seen that I was an L-Tech. Okay, weird. But I didn't say anything. I was like, oh, okay. So as the conversation gets deeper, she starts asking me questions about that person, which, later on I found out is her boyfriend. So she's asking me questions like, so do you know so-and-so? Like, and I'm like, I know of him, but I don't really look into his life. Like, I don't pay attention to him. And she was like, oh, well, why did you like his status or whatever? And I'm like, what?
This is why you should think twice about making your friend your surrogate. I always knew I wanted to have a few kids. I've dreamt of being a mom for as long as I can remember. However, due to a medical condition, carrying a baby isn't an option for me. I wasn't going to let this stop me, so I started looking into surrogacy. This process was really expensive and a lot harder than I thought. After months of searching, my best friend Ashley volunteered to be my surrogate for me and my fiance. She knew how much we wanted to start a family. I was so excited and extremely grateful. Ashley and I had been friends for 8 years, and I couldn't think of anyone better to be our surrogate. My fiance and I decided to ask Ashley to move in with us so that we could all be there for each other throughout the pregnancy. Everything was going great until it wasn't. Ashley started making a few comments to my fiance that made me really uncomfortable. One night, she asked him to give her a back massage. When he hesitated, she said to him, "I'm carrying your child, you should do whatever I ask you to." I let this comment go, even though it didn't sit right with me. Another night, she referred to herself as his baby mama, which made me furious. I told her she was overstepping, and she laughed and told me she was just kidding. It only got worse from here. Part 2 of why you should think twice about making your friend your surrogate. Ashley continued to overstep throughout the surrogacy process. One night, she told me she didn't like the name that I picked out for my baby and started giving me recommendations on what she thought the name should be. As it got closer to the due date, Ashley told me that she had thoughts about moving in permanently and raising the baby with my fiance and I, which was never part of the plan. When I shut that down, she seemed bitter. I could tell she had developed feelings for my fiance, which made it even more awkward. I knew I made a terrible mistake picking her as my surrogate. After my daughter was born, Ashley stayed with us for a little while longer, even though it wasn't part of our initial agreement. She wanted to spend every second holding our new baby girl, and I could tell that she was getting overly attached. We decided to tell Ashley our observations and told her that she had to move out before things got worse. She didn't take this well, and when she left, she told us that she didn't want to hear from us anymore. A couple years later, Ashley reached out to us and asked if she could come over and see us. When she came over, she told my daughter right in front of me that she was her real mom and that she'd find out when she was older. I couldn't believe it and immediately asked her to leave. Luckily, this is why you should be nicer to customer service representatives. After graduating from high school, I got a job working as a waitress at a local restaurant. It was a popular place, especially during the holiday season. A few days before Christmas, a woman came in wanting to pay for and pick up a phone order. On this day, we had 7 pages of takeout orders, each page containing 10 to 13 orders. I asked her for the name on the order, and she gave me 3, saying that she didn't know who placed it and she was just picking it up. I found a few matches, but none were the right order. As I reached the last page, I told her those names didn't match with the order. She was visibly annoyed and gave me 2 other names. I went back to the first page and searched again. I found a match, but again, wrong order. I apologized and told her that we didn't have any matches. She insisted it had to be one of them, followed by, "Why is it so hard for you?" I kept calm and asked her what exactly she was picking up instead. She said that she didn't know and it's my job to check her out and get it to her. I told her if she didn't have another name, then I wouldn't have any way to know which one was hers because we had 75 orders placed that weekend. That's when she asked me if I'm stupid because I work at a register, so it couldn't be that hard to find an order. Ignoring that, I told her I'd read off the names of each order and she could let me know if one was familiar. This is when she started. Part 2 of why you should be nicer to customer service representatives. She flipped out about how I was wasting her time, but if that's what I had to do in order to do my job, so be it. I'm pretty sure she also muttered the R word. About halfway through the first page, I said a company name and she exclaimed, "Yes, that's it." This is when my eyes lit up and I smiled wildly at her. A genuine and true smile, ear to ear. I asked her if she worked at this company and she said yes. Then I asked her if she knew the company owner and named him. She said yes. The smile on my face widened even more than I thought originally possible as I said, "That's my dad. I'll have to tell him about this. What a small world." The color from her face visibly drained as she started to ask if I was his daughter. I cut her off saying, "Yup, my dad. Who would have known? I'm actually about to go on my 30 and I'll have to call him. I'm sure he'll love to hear all about this." Before she could say anything, I got the order and handed it to her. I spent the rest of the transaction glowing and basking in her silent panic. I ended up telling my dad about it and he was livid. He didn't fire her, but she was given a severe warning and put on probation. However, she didn't last long because 2 weeks later, she lost the company a big client by responding rudely in an email.
Story time of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. My older sister never really liked me as a child. We were never close. I never knew why, but I was guessing it was because of the 10-year age gap. But I'm pretty sure she hated me because she couldn't even look me in the eye. I cannot make this up. She would not look me in the eye. But she never really talked to my parents either. She kind of just kept to herself all the time. Sometimes I have vivid memories of when we were younger and she would always be arguing with my parents about something and I always thought it had something to do with me. Well, I was right. It had everything to do with me because eventually my sister turned 18 and she moved out. For 2 years, I didn't talk to her at all. I honestly don't even think I had her number saved. And I'm pretty sure that she didn't have mine. Well, 2 years later, and I was 10 at the time, she reached out to me via social media. I'm not sure how she found my Instagram name, but it was just my name, so she probably just typed that in and found me. She DM'd me and told me that she wanted to talk about something very important and that she would like to talk over the phone. So we exchanged numbers and we called that same night. And she told me that when she was younger, my dad had taken advantage of her and gotten her pregnant and had me. This is part 2 of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. So like I said, my older sister had reached out to me via social media and told me that she was actually my mother. And so after we got off the phone that same night, I lost it at dinner and I went off on my parents and I screamed at them. And I told them that I would go to the police and tell them everything and I would tell them the truth unless they just let me live with my older sister. And they tried to explain themselves and their reasoning was that they wanted to keep the family together because of their traditional values. And it would have just made their lives a lot harder going through all the court proceedings, so they just kept the family together. And so they clearly didn't want me to go into the police, so they said that I could go live with my older sister. So she came to get me, but she lived in a different state, so it kind of took a while. I still had to stay in the house for like a week or so before she came, but I packed all my stuff and I was ready to go. And when we went back to where she lived, we immediately called the police and told them everything. Fast forward a little bit, they did some DNA testing. My sister's DNA matched as my biological mother's, and then my dad was my biological father, and they saw how the ages just didn't match properly, so they took my father to jail.